Guten Tag. Guten Morgen. Mushy mushy. Kansan Somira. What other ones do I know? Cuckoo. That one's French. Hasta mañana. No, that's not good. Aloha. Ohio. Isn't mushy mushy hello? Mushy mushy? Mush mushy? Isn't that how you answer your phone in Japan? Ohio. I thought Ohio was just like hello. I remember I learned one time like the difference between like a formal thank you and an informal thank you in Japanese. An informal thank you is arigato, and the formal thank you is arigato gozaimasu. So like you would never go to like a shop and have them say arigato to you when you were leaving, because that would be something that you would say to a friend. So you would say, the more you say arigato gozaimasu, which is like the full way to be like, and then there's like a different way too, like to talk to talk to your boss. Like you could, like you're not even supposed to compliment your boss. I learned that. In Japan, complimenting your boss in a way that here would seem totally normal is considered very disrespectful. So like for instance, if your boss got a haircut, here in America you could say, oh, your hair looks nice, that's a nice looking haircut, and your boss in America probably is not going to be offended at all by that. But if you were to do that in Japan, even though it's a nice sentiment, you are giving a compliment to your boss. You're giving a compliment to your superior. They're supposed to give those to you. If you give a compliment to somebody, it implies that you're above them.
I see. So it's almost like seen as
it's like looking
demeaning.
down on them.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, nice haircut on you.
Yeah.
You know, it's you're sending like that kind of energy up the pipeline when it's only supposed to come down.
Well, I mean, that's not a horrible fucking.
It's not horrible, it's just different. You know what I mean? It's something that like would definitely get you in trouble if you moved there from here.
Yeah.
It's just an example of how their culture does not mirror ours. You know, there's certain aspects of Japanese culture and American culture that I think are married at the hip, because both capitalist nations, both nations that are insanely, you know, obsessed with media and gadgets and all that shit. And but man, that one right there, that'll get your ass busted, get you fired for doing something you thought was nice. You know. I'm the mighty assistant manager. I do not need your assessment of my appearance, subordinate. Yeah, pretty much.
It's fucking crazy how closely allied we are with them, even considering we fucking nuked them.
Well, we kind of like, and I mean, this is just the truth. We kind of like subdued them into being subservient to us. Like not only did we, like, it wasn't just winning the war against them, like the surrender was unconditional. So we occupied them for, I mean, we still do. We still have military bases in Japan because of that. And they can't have their own standing military outside of a defense force still to this day because of that. So yeah, I mean, they're very much like a little client state of ours.
Yeah. I know too that like their economy is way more debt based than ours is. Like their debt to GDP ratio is fucking insane.
Yeah, because it doesn't matter as much.
Yeah,
They're
occupied by America.
They're a smaller country that's underwritten by the biggest economy in the world, so they can do all kinds of awesome things with their money and not worry about making the money back. Whereas, here they're a lot less likely to throw money at a project and go into debt for the benefit of people. They do that for the benefit of rich people. Throw money and go into debt for a war that's going to generate a continuous amount of revenue for a number of, companies. The company or the country eats ass in the deal, but the companies, they get to eat the meal.
Yeah, it's like anyone saying like, oh, but that debt's gonna come due one day. It's like we're not even close to where Japan is.
Yep.
If Japan can piggyback off of us to operate in debt, then we can operate in debt too.
Yep. You guys are up early. Not really. This is typically when we get up. I'd say like the average morning, especially nowadays, both of us are up by like at the latest 10 in the morning. But usually by like 7:38, we're kind of like crawling out of bed, zombified, looking for that first hit of coffee. By taking away Japan's military, we let China grow out of control. It used to be their resources would get tied up repelling a Japanese invasion every 20 years or so. Well, I honestly think that, like, us being, like, because Japan doesn't have a standing military, but we do. So I actually think that us occupying Japan so heavily with our military and being able to deploy so many, like, resources in a short time to that area is a greater bulwark against Chinese aggression than a free Japan ever would have been, because Japan is ultimately hindered against China by the sheer enormity of China. Japan can be technologically advanced for 20, 30 years in a long conflict and really do some damage to China, but eventually China's going to catch up. And when it does, they're just going to be able to outproduce, outwar. You know what I mean? Japan standing alone as a bulwark against China really has no chance. I was mostly making a joke anyhow. Okay, well, whatever. I responded anyway.
Yeah, well, fucking...
Nuance doesn't play
when Japan was fighting China, they were not being... following laws and shit.
Yeah, but you are right about that. The Empire of Japan used to be quite irascible as an empire. They used to invade China and actually held parts of coastal mainland China for a generation or more over the course of their hundreds of years of warfare. So yeah, I mean, and likewise, China was known to launch some invasions of Japan and shit. So no, you're absolutely right that area of the world is, I mean, it's not just theirs. China is constantly in conflict with pretty much every neighbor state, from Mongolia, like major neighbors, Mongolia to Taiwan. I guess Taiwan is more of a client state than a neighbor state, but you get my drift. Fucking India now, like China is beefing with India.
I think both China and Russia are trying to go for like their own equivalent to the EU.
Why wouldn't they? Like they're constantly being punitively punished by every other country in the world. Whether you believe they deserve it or not is immaterial. You have to put yourself in the shoes of somebody who lives in one of these countries, and then try and put yourself in the shoes of somebody who runs one of these countries. The end result is the same. You are being constantly punished by a governing body and treated like a subservient state. So why wouldn't you start your own thing? See, people have been talking about this for years. I've been talking about it for years. The idea of a China-Russia coalition.
Or even just them expanding into their neighboring states and shit.
Yeah, well, I think the real danger is them realizing that together China and Russia could absolutely, like, you know, maybe not like totally and utterly blending, because they'd have very opposite cultures. They don't have cultures that blend very well. But I think that if they were able to come to some sort of military arrangement for mutual defense, and maybe even a mutual like research pact and like all the things that NATO does, it could be like game changing, world changing. And I think that I'm not, you know, the only person who's thought about this. I think both China and Russia have probably looked far enough down the road to see that being, you know, a possibility. So, I don't know. We'll see. I think today, the title of today's stream is my favorite in a long time, because I think I could like use it as a, I don't know, like another name for the show, or like a recurring thing that we do on the show or something. Burnt offerings, bro. I kind of want to wrap it up.
Yeah.
I'm sure somebody else has called their podcast burnt offerings or some shit. That's what happened with Highdeology.
Yeah.
Like ultimately, or no, Highdeas. That's why I had to change the name to Highdeology, because there was already some other brand that called itself Highdeas. God damn it. It takes me no time at all. I literally, like, if you go back and look at the titles of these streams, except for that brief, like, few months where I was retitling, all of those titles are like, what, like, I'll sit down, I'll go like, I want to stream. I'll get everything set up for the stream, get all the things selected, go to the screen where you put in the stream title, and whatever the first thing that pops into my head is, goes in there. Very rarely do I get to that screen and my brain just goes like it flatlines or whatever. But usually I'm the kind of person that wakes up with a song or a phrase stuck in my head anyway. Something I heard last night, or something I was thinking about last night, or something I was thinking about 2 days ago, comes roaring out of my subconscious as I wake up. And it's actually kind of funny. I've found that that is one of the ways that I can manage my temper in the morning, is to allow myself to obsess about whatever that thing is that I'm thinking about, rather than pushing it out of my head and getting on with the day and like trying to like, because I used to, you know, kind of like by necessity, because I chose to sleep in so close to when I went to work, I used to have to like literally shake myself, slap myself, not literally, but you know, I'd have to really like force myself out of that groggy state and into a state where I could think quickly and interact with people and shit. And so I would get very short, and anything that was in the way of that path from like I feel groggy to I feel okay was like a hindrance to me. And now, like, I don't necessarily, like, I try and get up well before I have to go do things, but even when I don't, that's one of the tactics I use, as weird as that sounds. I always wake up with some stupid little thing in my head, and typically I would try and just like push it out. I'd go like, that's a remnant of sleep. You were dreaming about that song, or you were dreaming about that phrase, or you were dreaming about that little word, or whatever it is. Get it out of here. Get the day started. But now I just go like, what? Lamborghini. Yep. Whatever it is. I'll just sit and think it while my brain wakes up, you know?
Yeah. Now, that's one thing about Neansburg is they're almost all earworms.
If you're into them. They're earworms if you can get past the gate.
Yeah. I
know why a lot of people hate the Antwoord, because it's probably the reason I didn't like them the first couple of times that I heard them. I didn't like them until Evil Boy came out, because I didn't get it. It's like, what is this? I thought this is South African. I'm never gonna get it. And it is. I mean, a lot of their thing is like taking this South African street culture and kind of like giving you a taste of that. But once I listened a little bit, like an earworm usually does, they weaseled their way into my brain, and now that I like what they proffer, that I'm actually into what they give, it's so easy to see how many of their songs are intelligently written to just stick. I don't know who does most of the writing for them. Probably Ninja, I would imagine. But he's really got an eye for phrasing and stuff, like the hook.
Yeah. And because they can use Afrikaans and whatever other African language, they can just force rhymes to happen.
Oh my god, it makes them so limber. That's another thing that I really liked about in the '90s, especially. There was this explosion of Hispanic rap. Like with the explosion of gangster rap came the explosion of like Hispanic gangster rap, basically. And I guess the biggest, most memorable group that came out of that was Cypress Hill. And they were so cool because of that very thing. They rapped mostly in English, but they would throw Spanglish in when they needed to force a rhyme. And it always sounded so cool when they did it. They knew just how much to throw in. So, yeah. That does make, but see, it hampers a lot of rap too. If you don't have, see, here's the thing. Here's what I genuinely believe. Spanish is a very beautiful language, but it's also a very fiery language. It's got an angry tone to it. It's very easy to fucking. That mixes well with hip hop. Same thing goes with Afrikaans. Afrikaans has got that Dutch. Where it's, you know, that kind of stuff. That where they're really growling and stuff with their consonants. Fits great with rap. You mix that in. But like I'm telling you, French. It's too pretty. You can't harden up. You know. Oui, absolument. Je parle souvent avec mes amis francophones. You can't do it. It just sounds like you're trying to give somebody a rose and you're mad about it.
Or like, can you imagine like French metal, dude?
I don't think a Frenchman has ever done it, because I think they know. And I hate to say it too, but Russian too. Russian, you might think like, oh, Russian, because it has the, but it's too lilting. Like it's too complex and consonant heavy, and so it just like Russian rap ends up sounding like it just sounds garbage. So they can't do it. Gojira is French. I didn't know that. Well, okay. There is a French metal band. I've heard Gojira. They're a legit metal band. They're one of those bands that like they're not trying to be French. You know what I mean? They're trying to be metal. And as long as they're doing that, I don't think it's a problem. But it's like these rappers that are like, yeah, I'm hardcore, but I also want to be French.
Look, British rappers too. They don't sound right.
I wish I could take them aside and let them know that, like, look, bro, I understand that you're like a bad boy yardie or whatever up here, but it is not coming across in the music. It's not, man. Just, you need to stick to gunning down people and knifing people and robbing people and pimping or whatever it is you're doing over here. I'm fine with that. Like, look, dude, I'm not saying they couldn't beat me up. I'm just saying they all sound like they could. You know? So there really is, like, some of them, and I really think Australian would be even worse. I've never heard an Aussie rap. Well, no, that's not true. I have heard an Aussie rap. There's actually the Kid Laroi. I think the Kid Laroi is an Aussie rapper. And if that's true, maybe it's because the Aussies are a little grimier.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They got a little bit of grime on their accent. Whereas the British, they just sound like even a dude could be rapping about robbing you. And killing you. And like, if you close your eyes, he could also be making you a cup of tea or wishing you jolly good morning or some shit. It's tipping his fucking top hat to
It's
you.
almost like imagining a leprechaun rap.
You're absolutely right. That's it. Well, that's what started this whole thing was DeAntwoord. So yeah, my wife's a huge DeAntwoord fan, and I'm a casual DeAntwoord fan. You heard of Miyachi, Asian American rapper who raps in Japanese, and it sounds weird, but it actually works. I actually heard, and this was a local dude too, back in the early 2000s, a Vietnamese rapper from the area that I lived in, from the Central Valley. I cannot remember the name of the song I used to like, but I was introduced to it by one of the dudes I worked with at Starbucks. And it sounded pretty hard. I'm not going to lie. It was like that mix of Vietnamese and English stuff, but who's this hobo and where's Paul? You know what, you little bastard with an anime avatar? I'm gonna time you out for that. You got me salty with that one. I'm trying. Ugh. Man, I feel like ass today again. Kudos, and cheers to all. Sinus infection and whatever else. Who knows? Maybe I got the vids. It's hard to tell. So many people, when they get it, they got like a mild case of it. I got a mild case of the vids. It's totally possible. I've been out and about. Had anything for breakfast? No. That's another thing with me is like I gotta wait a couple hours after I wake up before I eat. It just kind of sucks, but that's the way it is. My stomach is not like happy with me in the mornings usually. Oh man, don't get me started on the fucking dentist system, Nomad. I don't know. Bro, I gotta let you guys in on a little secret. There are two things about me that I don't talk about a whole lot. Number one, I hate the fucking dentist. And we can get into why. Number two, I haven't been to the dentist in, I don't even want to think about how long, bro. I don't want to think about it. Let's just say that it's an unreasonable amount of time. And we'll put it there. Now, the reason that I hate the dentist is pretty simple. And this is going to sound like a total crybaby whine or whatever. But when I was a kid, I had crookedy teeth. And my dad has crookedy teeth. And he was made fun of for it. Even though, quite honestly, they don't look bad. But he was made fun of because he had crookedy teeth. And so he was determined that his children were not going to have crookedy teeth. And so I went to the dentist, orthodontist thing, got the braces, and I'm telling you, man, like I came to associate the dentist with absolute torture. Those braces, and I had significantly crookedy teeth. So the braces that I had, they had to be on for like over a year. In fact, I think I wore braces for almost 2 years. And dude, braces turn your lips into hamburger. They're awful. They're like, there's a wire that goes through and that pops out of this thing that you got to put back in a bunch of times. And there's this and there's that and you got to fucking rubber bands you got to put on them. And anyway, I developed an aversion at a very young age to going to the dentist. And as soon as somebody wasn't really forcing me to, I just kind of stopped doing it. And so it has been an unreasonable number of years since I've gone to the dentist to have a cleaning, and it's not even the cleaning that I'm worried about. I know I've got cavities, I've got problems in a number of areas in my mouth. I'm very lucky, like I don't have tons and tons of tooth problems, but you know, I've got that chipped tooth that I chipped a long time ago, and I did some reading on this, and they're like, yeah, you know, you don't really necessarily have to go to the dentist with a chipped tooth, but by the same token, eventually you're going to have to, because when you chip a tooth, it exposes all that inner enamel, and that tooth is going to rot. It's not yet, but I'm just like, got some going on in one of my back molars. I got like a fucking toothache back there. I don't know what's going on. So I got to go to a fucking dentist. And I know it's not even the bill that I'm worried about. That's worrisome enough, but I hate the fucking dentist. So I got that coming up too. I got a dentist visit in my future. Well, I'm good on the tooth upkeep that I can do on my own. You know, I probably could floss more than I do, but I do floss. And I brush, you know. But it's time to go. I need to go to the dentist so bad, but it's too expensive. Yeah, that is fucking sad, bro. Ultra fucking sad. Oh, you got like a human necessity? That'll be X amount of currency. Like what? Wait a minute. Strike two. We play a different game of baseball here on Highdeology. You usually don't even get a strike one, but you definitely don't get more than a strike two. Like being charged out the ass with no bargaining power to keep. Yeah. Me too. Things that sucks too is that dentists are like the least understanding. Yeah, that's another thing too, is I hope I can find a dentist that isn't a total fucking sadist and at least has some kind of bedside manner and will empathize with the fact that I don't like being there. My spouse finally got a decade-old, incredibly damaged tooth because they job actually offered dental. Oh, that's nice. I have to go to a dentist school for my dentistry. So I gotta look at some reviews and stuff of some dentists around here and see who's on my coverage and all that. Find a dentist that hopefully isn't the dentist from Little Shop of Horrors, you know what I mean? Your dentist is a cute Japanese girl who always yells at you. No, you can keep that. Don't want it. I want a nice old guy who's just really understanding. I want him, when he looks at my mouth and sees all the problems with it, to go like, well, you know, we got some problems in here, but we'll get you fixed up. No problem. We're gonna handle one thing today, then we'll have you back in a couple weeks. We'll handle up the rest. We'll get you all fixed up. I don't care how much. I don't care if he charges me out the ass. That's the tact I want. I don't want you like lecture about how awful my mouth is. I don't want the lecture about how often I need to come back to the goddamn dentist. I don't need all that. I want the dude to fix my tooth and leave me alone. How dare thee not floss 18 times a day? I don't want to be like, at this point in my life, I don't want that kind of tone from anybody. I don't care if they are an MD. Like, I'm not seeking that tone from anybody. You take that tone with me right off the jump, I'm already looking for a new doctor. I'll go through every doctor in town that I can until I find one that isn't like you. I want a sufficient AI to fix me up and go away. Yeah. That'd be really nice. Just like a little robot doctor that doesn't say anything to you, just works on your teeth, gets it all fixed up, leaves you the fuck alone. I can't wait for that. That is good news to me. These doctors are slowly but surely going to be replaced with machines that can do their jobs better and quicker and more efficiently. I mean, it's not just the lecture that keeps me from going, but the lecture is part of it. You know what I mean? I don't want to. I know. I set a certain standard for myself. Like, I treat the people that I have to interface with respect and dignity. I don't treat people like ass. I'm not rude. I'm not out of pocket with people. And so I expect the same. And I have a pretty clearly defined and easy to understand idea of what's rude. You don't talk to a grown-ass man like he's a 12-year-old. Rule number 1. You know, I'm not a little boy. Don't treat me like a little boy. Don't scold me like a little boy. You know what I mean? I didn't come here for a fucking spanking. I came to get my teeth drilled. So just get to work. Someone did that to you? Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, you know, like, it happens to you all the time. You go to the doctor, you go to a specialist, you do this, you do that. Not just doctors. There are certain people in certain positions that feel like they're going to talk to you like you're a little kid. Treat you like you're still like a teenager because of their position or something. I don't like that shit. I don't come at anybody like that. I really don't think there's anybody that should come at me like that. So, like, the internet is one thing. I mean, I can't control what people say here, but like, dude, in my personal sphere, that's what I'm talking about. Like, I definitely, if that shit extended to the internet, I wouldn't be here. You know, because you just can't stop it. You can ban it, but you can't stop it. But out in the real world, though, I can enforce a boundary, and I sure enough do. I wonder how you handle being treated like that when it comes to your manager if you work for a company, because you kind of have to take their disrespect. To a point you do, but not really. Here's the thing, like, and this depends. If you're working for a company that's like the guy that owns it is your direct boss, like a small company, then yeah, you're kind of fucked. If you want to keep working for that company, then you got to sit there and take disrespect. But if you're working for a big company, like Starbucks and stuff, you got all kinds of recourses and stuff. You know, I'm willing to put up with a lot of crap from people as long as it's their crap. You know, like I'm not willing to put up with people insinuating themselves into my crap. And you get a manager that's like just verbally abusive to you or something. I mean, you got more recourses than ever to record that shit. Take it to a higher person and say, listen to how my manager talks to me on the daily. Fuck you, you're an idiot, blah, blah, blah. That manager's gonna be fired. Go to the district manager or run it up the corporate flag. You know, you've been with a company long enough, you know who to call and how to escalate even beyond your DM. So there's a certain amount of give and play to that. A manager can be arrogant, but they can't be offensive. You know what I mean? If you get to the point where a manager is just like dressing somebody down every day, they're going to end up fired, unless, like I said, it's the owner of the company. Well, see, like, but at that level, at the level that I'm talking about, when you're working for a big company and the person who's verbally abusing you is a shift lead or an assistant store manager or a store manager, that person is, it's not going to damage the company to replace that person. That person is just as replaceable as you are as a worker. And so just like they're not going to put up with you verbally abusing your boss like that, you know, you get together, and especially if it's like they're doing it to multiple people, and you get 2 or 3 people to go and go like, look, our boss is verbally abusive every day. Well, like, yeah, they will Catholic priest managers instead of firing them sometimes, but ultimately, like, sorry, survival of the fittest. Your job just got better. Your store just got better, and woe betide the poor store that gets that manager. But whatever. But see, that costs more than firing and hiring a new manager. Bumping a manager from store to store and having them, because like a bad manager like that runs a bad store. If your employees are unhappy, scared to come to work, you know, edgy because you're constantly yelling at them and blah 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 blah, your store's gonna suck. And you know what I mean? There's that. I hate workplaces where people constantly quit and they move new people in. Well, a lot of the, you know, bigger places are designed that way. It's like Walmart, Amazon, Target. They're revolving doors. And a lot of that is because there's no union for these places. They have lowered the standards to such a point that it is cheaper by far for them to just burn somebody out in a month or two and then grab their stack of 10 million applications and hire some other dupe and burn them out in a month or two. They take advantage of the quote unquote labor shortage. So, how do you win? In this arena, you unionize. That's it. That's the only way you win. You don't look to your politicians like a lot of people are doing. They're not going to do it. More money goes in their pocket from the status quo than shaking up the status quo. Now, ultimately, you establish a big nationwide union for Walmart and stuff, that benefits you as a politician. But you have to understand, politicians are by their nature short-minded creatures. They get elected, and a couple of weeks later, they're already thinking about their reelection, right? They got to think about tomorrow and how they look tomorrow so that they can get reelected down the road. They're very focused, very singular, and very focused on the moment. They have to be. Political creatures by nature have to be to exist. So there are very few of them that are going to see the long-term benefit of shaking up the status quo when there's a big fat bunch of perks being stuffed in their pocket every fucking week. Nobody wants to shake that apple cart. So you got to shake it from underneath. Unionization, that's the only way to do it. And unfortunately, I think organizing is still a thing we don't put enough emphasis on. We need to put fire in people's asses to do it. I mean, you're right about that. I mean, that is one of the things, you know, that I think is at the core of the message that I've been trying to get across for years now when it comes to electoralism and the amount of time people spend arguing about it. That passion, that fire, and that participation, where it translated from the electoral world to a local volunteer organization or a local nonprofit or a local political party, you know, outsider political party, or, you know, just a local charity, mutual aid organization, whatever you want to call it. I just want you to think about the amount of fucking radical change from the ground up that could happen. It's the only way it gets done ever. If you look back at every change in American history, every change for the better, where does it start? Does it start with big politicians going like, not usually. Not usually. You might be able to make an argument for a couple times that a politician has pushed a huge change from the top down, but the vast amount of positive change that's happened politically, socially in this country over its 200 plus year existence, it has been from the ground up. Something happens that sets off a spark, it sets off a spark somewhere else, and something happens, and boom. Yep. Some little local protest throws out a spark that ignites a powder keg in a big city, and then that ignites more, you know what I mean? And it just from the ground up, people move. That's the civil rights movement in a nutshell. That's the anti-slavery movement in a nutshell. You know how many years there were abolitionists before there was abolition? There were people that dedicated their lives to it and never saw it happen. That included lobbying politicians, but it included a lot of local organization, marches, demonstrations, peaceful sit-ins, you know, strategic civil disobedience. The movement for a woman's right to vote was intrinsically tied to the dry movement to abolish alcohol, which ended up being a bad idea. But look what good idea piggybacked off the bad idea. There would have never been an American suffrage movement for women without the anti-alcohol movement, the doomed Volstead Act that so many people pushed for. Because if you look at the history of that movement, the movement for women's suffrage is intrinsically tied to it. So think about it. Women were the primary driver behind this ultimately bad idea to outlaw alcohol. They were the ones that were suffering the brunt of alcoholism. Their men would go out, work all day and all night, and then come home and squander the check on booze and come home and beat the kids, beat the wife. And so they had every impetus to take up, you know, take up arms, so to speak, against that. But it was that political awakening when women saw like, holy shit, so women can get together and march and change things, that empowered the suffrage movement. And that went on for years and years, and we're talking decades and decades and decades before there was ever any kind of movement for either. So, like I said, people live their whole lives championing, fuck that word. People spend their lives dedicated to that cause. died without ever seeing it. I got there, yeah, but I'm not going to try and get there again. I've had enough. I've had enough of that word. None of what you said is true as proven in the anthropological literature. Huh? I think that so many people are bogged down by the crap of everyday life that they can't focus on a movement. I just think that people have been tamed. Domesticated, I think, would be a better word. I think that people had way more to worry about back in the day, you know? Back in the 19th century, early 20th century. I think people had a lot more to worry about. Things were a lot more unstable. Things were a lot less fucking self-assured. And they knew that eventually they had to take up for themselves. But I think that over the course of the years between here and there, people have learned to be domesticated. They've learned to channel that energy into the establishment's funnel for said energy, which itself is a big ripoff. Let's take their money so that we can advertise ourselves to them. And people get wrapped up in that like it's a big old football game or a wrestling match. Since the midterms are coming up, will you be talking about no confidence more as they approach? Hearing you talk about that really got me thinking about non-electoral routes of functional change. Well, that's what we're doing here. I would say that yes, as that ramps up, I'm probably going to get a lot more questions from people. And I'm probably going to end up talking about alternate, not necessarily electoral routes to funnel your energy and your care and your time into. Because I've read a history book, I'm not some kind of like genius. I'm not saying some kind of outsider thing. I've just read American history. The 8-hour workday, the 40-hour work week, paid vacation time, maternity leave, all of these things came from a decades-long fight. Literal fight. Like people got their heads cracked, people got shot, killed, blown up for those rights. And it was a grind for 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, 80 years or more before people started to see the fruits of that movement. But it had to start. And people, and like I said, people gave their whole lives to it before it got to a point where people could assert that right no matter what job they had. That didn't come from politicians. That didn't come from lesser of two evils voting. That didn't come from riding with Biden or dumping with Trump or whatever, that came from people like eschewing politicians and marking them as their enemies and hitting the streets with their bodies. And slowly but surely, a lot of those rights that were won in that decades-long battle that I talked about have been eroded. I'm a blue-collar construction worker, and I think I see a little bit of your point about solidarity you talked about back a year or so ago. Yeah. You're in a profession that is one of the professions where that erosion is most apparent. Construction unions used to be a huge deal. They used to be tied with a lot of other industrial unions, and they've been weakened to the point where if you can get into one, you're great. They're like bonded tradesman unions now. But most people are just hired off the street as construction. And, you see firsthand the erosion of the movement. You see firsthand how over the last 50 years or so, maybe even 60 years, I mean, it started a lot earlier, but slowly but surely that erosion has happened where Americans are accepting shit that, you know, they should hit the streets for. That's why I say we've been domesticated. And when I see a person arguing for electoralism and rabidly poring over every goddamn little news blurb that comes out of CNN or this, that, or the other thing, I see an agent of that domestication. I see the alpha dog in the domesticated pack. And I see an agent of the status quo. The push and pull of electoralism will never stop. There are no permanent victories with it, even if it's codified in the Constitution. The powerful don't care about that shit. It's reached a point now where like it's a tug of war game, and we like to think about it as a tug of war between politicians, but it's really a tug of war between us. They've pulled the greatest magic trick of all time. They took what was essentially a straight up tug of war game where, you know, at the end of the electoral process, two candidates had to grab the rope and see who won yanking it. And they have slowly but surely over the years just passed that rope off to us because there's no real fight anymore. They were like, wait a minute, what if we just make sure that whoever wins is going to make sure that the bankers are happy and make sure that the investment guys are happy and make sure that the, you know, the big giant international industry guys are happy? What if we just like put on a show where it looks like those guys are fighting and handed that rope off to the American people? And that's what happened. You got rope-a-doped. And now you're over there like, run with Biden, run with Biden, run with Biden. Instead of Biden pulling on that rope. Biden didn't lift a finger to do any of the work of yanking on that rope. He'd let you pull it for him, and then he sat there and looked at it when you dropped it. You spent all this energy pulling on that rope for him, and you got the blue rag over the line. Good for you. And your expectation was that old Grandpa Joe was going to pick up that rope. And I know you had low expectations, but you thought he was going to yank it a couple of times. Maybe cancel student debt. Maybe deschedule marijuana. Maybe, you know, do a little something. And at best, he looked at it and like kicked it with his toe. He was like, Police are finally breaking up the protests in Ottawa. Of course they are, because they were actually disrupting things. So as nice as Canada wants to portray itself, and see, this is the funny thing. I want all Canadians to take note of what's going on at the border. You like to, because Canadians have this smugness about them sometimes. They like to look down on the United States and like, oh man, barbaric down there. Barbaric authoritarian nonsense. Look what happens, bro. Look what happens when Canadian people stand up. How long did it take for the stormtroopers to come? You're just like us. You're our little brother Canada. Like, quit pretending you got some moral authority up there. You don't. Same authoritarians are in charge up there that are in charge down here. They just speak the Canadian tone to you. I like how they said Bernie was too far left and couldn't win, but described Biden as the next FDR. What? Yeah, right. Stop resisting, eh? Stop resisting. Stop resisting, eh? Last super chat, then I gotta get back to work. What, in your mind, do you think would be the catalyst to get people to finally take direct action? Shit's gonna have to get worse. That's all there is to it. Like, I would like to think that we don't have to regress all the way back to post-Civil War Gilded Age America, but it's going to have to get there. People are literally going to have to get to the point where every industry is treating them like mules and paying them not enough to get by on. And then people will be hungry enough to hit the streets. It's just not there yet. It's getting there. You're starting to see more agitation for labor movements, but it's not quite there yet. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse. Oof. Mm. Oh. You guys sit right there. I'll be right back. Ugh. It's cold. We gotta do something. We gotta do something. What temp is it? I don't know, dude. I don't have a fucking thermometer up my ass that I can pull out. Can't tell you. Cold. I'll tell you that much. It's cold. That ought to be enough. I just told you it's cold. It was 60 here last night, 39 today, 18 tomorrow. Dun dun dun. That's a swing. That's a swingaroo. So windy that the door in your fence broke off. Nice. Heave ho, heave ho, hoist the colors high. Heave ho, thieves and beggars, never shall we die. Pirates are metal, man. I wish I could have been a pirate, man. I think I would have made a dope pirate lord. Like, can you imagine me, fat as I am, Instead of the Santa Cruz beanie, I've got like a big captain's hat on, hair flowing in the wind. But instead of just a down like this, it's got like big, chunky, like gold and iron beads in it. Same thing with the beard. I just got like missing an eye. I got like a cutlass slash across my face like this, and one of my eyes is out, so I got a patch. That's right, boys. Hoist the mainsails. There be fresh meat on the ocean today. I smell an English galley. I smell the fine wares and goods of an English dainty maid. Heave ho, thieves and beggars. Man, I could have been a badass captain. Captain Loadbeard, dude. I could have been the realist. I could have been like, if I was born in the right time, I genuinely believe that you guys wouldn't even know the name Blackbeard, bro. I would have slapped that dude down. When I heard people starting to go like, I hear there's a new pirate sailing the seven seas. Blackbeard, they calls him. It would have been I'd have been like, no, there ain't. What do you mean? I mean, there's no such thing as a Blackbeard. I'll prove it to you. Hoist the mainsail, boys. We're going chicken hunting. I would have found Blackbeard, and I would have sent him to Davies Jones' locker, and that'd have been it. And Long John Bumpins, yeah, dude. You gotta watch for him. The only thing in the world saltier than the briny sea. Captain Saltbeard. Yo ho. I could have been I could have been a good ass pirate captain. Like you can diss on me all you want, but I would have made a good ass pirate captain, dude. Because a pirate captain, like, very rarely does the captain have to engage in anything. The captain usually like has a pretty posh little stateroom and stuff. You just gotta come out and whip the boys up into a frenzy, make sure no mutinies happen. You gotta be an enforcer every once in a while. I could do it, dude. You probably still could. Nah, man, not the way I'm talking about. I don't want to be like a modern pirate, like trolling around the seas on a big old converted oil tanker or something. I want to have like a big old galley. You know what I mean? Like a big old galley with cannons in it. Like 12 cannons a side. No. My pirating days passed me by. What other like historical jobs? There's that one that we learned about in an episode, I think, where people used to like hire a hedge wizard or whatever. They'd hired like a dude to live on their estates, and he was there as entertainment. He was there to be like the wise old hermit for them, so that they could bring, like, say, do you know that on my land lives a wise old hermit who knows the answer to any question? Certainly, I shall take you to meet him. And like your whole job was to like, they'd bring people to you and you'd had to like put on a little show, like you were psychic or wise beyond your year. I could have done that for sure. For sure, I could have done that. But that's a job that doesn't exist anymore. Nah, I don't got the grit to be like a Western bounty hunter, I don't think. I got the sand. Groom of the stool. Yeah, dude, the groom of the stool, man. There's an old one-eyed hermit that lives upon the property. I allow him to live just upon the edges because he's never led me wrong, answers every question directly, clearly, and with foresight. Certainly, this is a jest. There's no jest, sir. I shall take you to his hut. It's but a short ride through the wood. I could have done it. I could have been there. No, I don't think I had. I don't think I could have been a knight, dude. Even though like not every knight would like, there was a lot of fat knights and stuff, and you know, knight was more of a title of nobility than like, you know, a sign that you battled and stuff. Even then, dude, dude, being a knight just looks like the most uncomfortable thing. That armor had to weigh a ton, and I bet you can't even like sit properly in it. It's horrible to have on, and it probably stinks and gets hot. It's just gross, man. Forget that. Make a good bard. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That'd be tough living, man. Bards lived rough. They still do. Most bards, you know, not doing too well. But you can still be a bard. That's one of the things that's like survived in a weird way. You can still be a person that travels from town to town and making money. There once was a man from South Hollow. Play your fucking guitar. Sing your little songs. 1930s traveling circus, maybe like the ringmaster or something. Maybe I could have done that, or like one of those attraction guys. Step right up. Feast your eyes on the most blood-curdling sight you've ever seen. From darkest Africa, the Manrilla. You, sir, you look like a man that has fortitude. Would you brave a moment looking into the eyes of your destroyer? You, madam. Oh, I could not admit you. You would faint immediately at seeing the beast. Could wipe the king's butt. Yeah, the groom of the stool, man. It's not a bad job. It's like, you know, how often can the king poop? Think about it. Twice a day, you got to do something gross, but you're like a lord. Seems like a pretty good trade-off. Not a very good vacation plan, though. It's not like the groom of the stool can take off, you know. Like, hey, king, can you hold it for a couple of weeks? I'd like to take my wife to the coast. Like, I wonder if they had backup groom of the stools, you know, just in case the groom of the stool couldn't make it to work one day. Like he called in sick. He's like, man, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, king. I'm not feeling good today. I need to take a couple days to sleep it off. You think you could hold it? King's got chronic IBS, man. Yeah, that would be kind of bad. I guess it kind of depends on the intestinal health of the king you serve, right? that game I was playing, Lost Ark. I started getting the itch to play it again last night because I gotta just quit after I figured out that like I just don't have what it takes. It's like, no, dude, fuck that. I'm jumping back in. I'm gonna do it. Like, cue the Eye of the Tiger music, and it turned out the same way, dude. I was just dying over and over. I was like, fuck it, nope, uninstalled. Uninstalled. I'm out of here. I don't got the skills to pay those bills, man. I think he'd be up for Diablo 2 Resurrected. I don't know, man. I played a little bit of it. I just like the old magic is gone for me, man. You try Rise on PC? Yeah, I played it. I didn't get like all the way. I usually don't in Monster Hunter games. I eventually get to a point where I'm just like, all right, I've played enough. But yeah, I gotta beat, every monster or whatever, and yada yada yada. That's enough for me. Thoughts on Elden Ring? I'm interested in it. Like, I don't know if I'll buy it when it first comes out because it's a Dark Souls game, and typically, like, I'm not a big fan of Dark Souls. Hypo, I'm finishing up what the fuck happened to Alien, but the previous editor sequence ends during Prometheus before Covenant. Could you tell TJ to check his DMs when you get a chance? Yeah, bud. Oh, I'm meeting with him here in just a little while, so I'll let him know. Thank you. I didn't know you were the guy doing it, but cool beans. Nito, burrito, petito, fonchito. What? You look so regal, Dinor. You're such a handsome boy. You're so handsome. Come up here. Let me get a good look at your little face. Oh, yeah. What a beard. What a regal, handsome boy. So fluffy. You want to go inside? Okay. We'll let you go inside. There you go. El Dinore. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of like Dark Souls games. I like Souls likes. I've played several different Souls likes that I really enjoyed, but like the setting of Dark Souls is just a little gray on gray to me. Because a little bit like, like I said, gray on gray is a really good one. A really good way of putting it. It just gets a little boring and shit for me. What's the point of games? They're so difficult, you want to break your controller, bro? It's always been that way. Old video games used to be so hard. Some of them were relatively easy. But they used to be incredibly, incredibly hard. Some people just like that, man. I like the challenge. Yeah, the aesthetic of Dark Souls is what I'm talking about. Just very generic high fantasy. I mean, it's got some cool vistas and stuff, but there's a lot of just like, I don't know. The enemies lack something, and the setting lacks something, and it just doesn't pull me in. It doesn't make me want to progress further. And in fact, it annoys me to be in certain areas. And I think that's true of everybody that plays Dark Souls, but I just didn't want to push through that. Like, you get to certain areas in a Dark Souls game, and it's just like, fuck this. You know? Whereas, like, if I'm playing a game that's like Dark Souls, has the same kind of mechanics, but a setting that I like, I might get a little frustrated, but I'm like, I want to see what's beyond this. So I'm doing it. I want to get this upgrade or whatever, so I'm doing it. Dark Souls never gets to that point with me. It's very easy for me to, like, eject. So I'm just like, psh, forget this. If the frustration quotient outstrips the fun quotient, then I'm not going to play the game. And there are some people that look for that. I think that ultimately that's what's at the heart of my disdain for Lost Ark. Ultimately had a lot of like potential to it, and it looked really nice, and it felt fun to level, but the end game is that. The end game is a total frustrating grind, and that's all it's meant to be. And there are things that you can do to make that grind a little more tolerable, but all of them take grinding. You've got to grind quests, you've got to grind time, you've got to grind repeated weekly, daily dungeons, and... Hey, baby.
Gotta go in like 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I'm in the same boat, Zach. It was a combination of like, because here's the deal. If it was content that like, okay, I got beat a bunch of times, and I could just keep going back and trying it until I got it down, I could probably deal with it. But I can only do it once a week per character. There's certain dungeons that you can only do once a week per character, and it's like, so you get one chance a week to practice it. And it's like, I don't have the, like, that's like planning out the next 6 months of your life, year of your life to be dedicated to progressing in a game. That's a little too much for me. I don't mind if that's the end goal of the game, but it needs to be something that like doesn't feel rushed and repetitive. And I really feel like with that game, you gotta like, all right, here's my 2 hours a day to play Lost Ark. I'm gonna do all my dailies on all my alts first, and then I'm gonna go and do my weeklies, and then I'm gonna do, you know, the side stuff that gives you a little bit more progression. And then when my 2 hours is over, I'll let the clock reset. Tomorrow I'll do the same thing. Boom, 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 boom. You just get in this cycle of like, here's what I do. Here's what I do with my time. And the more efficient you want to be, obviously, the more time you got to spend doing it. It's like it may be more efficient. You're leveling faster, but you're spending 3 hours a day or 4 hours a day doing it now because you got 6 alts instead of 2. It's like, I see what this game is doing. It's not sucking me in with the world and the content. It's sucking me in with like the hamster wheel. They got like the hamster wheel with the little carrot. No, hold on, don't go anywhere. Sorry, yeah, had to pause it. Give the wife a hug before she goes off to work. A hug and a kiss. Does it have a lot of micro transactions? Not really. I mean, it has like stuff. Like really, it's a freemium based model, But I'm used to that. Like, I'm fine if I'm playing like an MMO game, paying a monthly thing, and it has that. It's a monthly thing that you can get. You can play without it if you want, but it's got a lot of little convenience features in it. I'd be fine paying whatever it is, $10 a month to keep that going, if the game was good, or if it was like a game that I could see myself playing casually for, a couple months. But nope, it's not pay to win though, not in my opinion. But like, maybe kinda. See, like, that's the thing. Is like, it doesn't bother me if a game's got a subscription service, and I think that if you do pay for their little whatever it's called, Crystal Aura or whatever, it's basically you know their way of tagging on a monthly thing. You're probably gonna have a better experience, maybe even a faster experience leveling, but you can do it without it. There's lots of people that do. So no, it's just not for me. It's just too much of a grind, bro. It's built around the system of just repeating the same type of content every day, over and over and over again. And while that content is fun, and I'm sure the sense of progression is fun, once you get past the grind, it's just like I'm looking at the wall and I'm going like, nah, I don't have the time to devote to this. You can pay to speed level. Kinda. I mean, like, leveling isn't the game, though. You have to understand, like, whether you sink 20 hours into your leveling process to get you max level 50, or whether you pay for a power pass or whatever, leveling is not the game. Like, leveling is like the prologue of the game. Once you get your character to level 50, that's when the game really kicks in. And the game is about doing this rotating list of different dungeon activities every day and questing every day. And slowly but surely, every day, you get a little more powerful. You use alts, like all of it. It's a game that's built around having alts, which I thought I was really, really going to like, because a lot of times in MMOs that are class based, like this one is, I suffer from like alt envy or whatever. Like, I'll watch somebody else playing another character and I'm like, man, I should have rolled that, and I'll just re-roll. Well, in this game, like, it's like, have a bunch of alts. You know what I mean? That's the point. Like, if you want to play another character, get an alt, because a lot of things that your characters do benefit your account. So you basically got like character levels and power levels, and then you got your whole account. And so everything that you do on one of those characters feeds that account and makes it better for all the characters. So you're actually encouraged to have alts, try out different types of things, have a roster of 5 or 6 characters on one server that you play in a rotating fashion, but have one main that you funnel most of the benefits to. Yeah, it's just when you break down the game components, it's just a slog. That the more time you throw at it, the faster you're going to get up the mountain. But there's never a peak with these types of games, because like, even if you like grind it out and get to the peak of the mountain, that's all, you're only at the peak for a couple of weeks till they release the next piece of content, and then you're doing the same thing. For some people, that's fun. I'm not trying to dog you out if that's what you like, but I can't play a game like that, man. It feels like a job, you know. The minute a video game starts feeling like a fucking job is when I stop playing the video game. Oh shit, man, I better log on. I gotta do my crystal dungeon. Gotta do my crystal dungeon runs today, or else I'm behind, man. I'll lose a whole day of progression. Sounds like a job. It's like paying to work, yeah. And like the whole idea is that like the fantasy setting and the fun gameplay and the social interaction aspect is supposed to offset the fact that underneath it all, it's just kind of a grind. And I think that some games are better at obfuscating that, but pretty much all MMOs these days are level treadmills. And I hate it. I keep thinking I'm going to like a game that's based around that, based around a class archetype system and based around a leveling treadmill. And every time I play one and give it a good try, I end up hating it. And so I guess it just ain't for me. Theme park MMOs, dude. I prefer a system that is skill based, not necessarily like player skill, but skill based in terms of like your character is what you make it based on what you do. So like there's no like character classes to speak of. If you want to be a mage, you do magery. You want to use a sword, you do swordsmanship. You want to do both, you do both. You got a certain number of skill points that you can max out on your character, and you do that. You know what I mean? If you want to be a lumberjack, you chop lumber. You want to be an armorer, you make armor. And once you're maxed out on skill points, then you've got a character that can go out into the world and interact with every piece of content in the world in the way that you designed them to. And the world is persistent and ongoing and doesn't care if you're there or not. And doesn't care if you miss a daily quest. You know what I mean? Doesn't have any daily quests. When you log into the game, you decide what you're going to do that day. And it may end up being very repetitive. You may come up with like, I'm going to go to this dungeon, this dungeon, this dungeon, this dungeon. But it's at your discretion. You set your own goals. The game's not setting the goal for you and saying you have to attain this next tier of gear to unlock this next level of dungeon so you can attain this next tier of gear. The game doesn't set a goal for you like that. Once you've maxed out a character and skill points, it's up to you to decide what you do with that character and how you spend your time in the game. I prefer that kind of paradigm to the everybody's chasing the same brass ring paradigm of the modern MMO, and I just keep getting burned by it. And I don't know when I'm going to learn, because there's something about even the bad ones that attracts me to it. I love leveling. Like I was having a ball leveling in Lost Ark. I was like, oh man, I'm going to love this game. But then I hit that grindy wall, and also there's a huge difficulty spike. Like they really let you face roll the game, which I think is a bad deal. Like there was really nothing that challenged me all the way through the game. I'm just coasting. I'm thinking I'm all good at the game and stuff, or at least competent enough to do it. And then I get to the end game and I run my first raid and I'm geared for it. It's not like I'm under geared or something. And I'm just getting slaughtered left and right. It's like all of a sudden there's this like skill cliff that you have to climb. And I was like, man, fuck this. Mm-mm. Daily quests are just another stupid mechanic to create addiction. Yeah. They really is. It's like the gotcha game philosophy. The more you play, the more you log in, the more you get rewarded. And this game just is brazen with it. Like you get a daily login reward, and if you log in every day of the week, you get a special weekly bonus. And all of it is like, you don't get tons of stuff, but all of it is stuff that like, man, I wish I would have logged in yesterday, because then I would have gotten that bundle of 20 gems, and then I could have gotten the weekly bundle of 100 gems, bro. Damn. So it like capitalizes on FOMO, fear of missing out. It capitalizes on that like predatory kind of addictive instinct where it's just like you're kind of planning your life around it. Slamming your head against the grind wall yet. Yeah, and I just can't be led down that primrose path anymore. So I just got to stop playing these games. I was excited for this one too because all of these communities seemed invigorated by it. Like the WoW community, like people that were all salty that played WoW forever were all like, "Oh man, yeah, this is great. This game is great. It fixes everything that's wrong with WoW." I was all kind of like stoked because I'd watched some videos of the gameplay. It looked great, like a Diablo style isometric RPG with MMO elements, big flashy skills and stuff. It really looks great. It feels fun. But ultimately, the structure of the game is built around that, like hamster wheel with the carrot on a stick, and you're running towards it, but you never quite get the carrot. Wildly popular game in Korea, Japan, Russia. Just recently came here, and it's going to be popular here too. But it's going to be based around that paradigm of grind, 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 grind. Yeah, dude, there are people, that's a crazy thing, man. There are people that like lose their whole lives and livelihoods to these like phone games. Have you ever thought about these people out there and how they exist? I'm not talking about your average person that like maybe plays a little phone game and every once in a blue moon pays $10 to buy some gems in it or whatever. I'm talking about people that are like, dude, I'm gonna be the best at this phone game. That are just dumping tons of money into it so they can get all the bonuses and they can play it constantly and unlock all the research bonuses and stuff, like these like Clash of Clans or whatever type of games, gotcha games. I think gotcha means gachapon. It's like a gotta collect them all kind of thing. You used to buy little toys, and the more money you pumped into it, the more chance you had of getting the rare ones, and blah 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 blah. And it's the same thing, dude. I can't even imagine that, bro. Can you even imagine though? Like, who are these folks? Because they're suffering in like quiet silence. Psst, psst. Get out of here, kitty. You just don't care, do you? You're gonna make me get up and chase you out of here? It's not your yard, kitty cat. If my dog was out of here, he would run you off something real quick. So I'm gonna do it. Get. Psst, psst, psst. Better not be laying any kittens over there. I don't want no kittens on the property. Go lay your kittens on somebody else's property. I got a cat of my own, and he's fixed for that reason. Yeah, dude, I can't even imagine that shit, dude. How do you get roped into that? How do you get roped into something that, like, I'm so glad I don't have that, like, gambler's mentality. Moving cricket to this neighborhood is like bringing a eunuch to a whorehouse. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It really is. It drives them nuts, man. I know a lady that blew 20K on Farmville in 07. Unbelievable, bro. The money's just gone. Farmville. What a nightmare. Anyway, I'm out of here. I'll see you guys later. Bye.